Pleased to say Grant Millington joins us from the Castleford Tigers. Grant, hello, and I guess as I've been asking everyone at the moment, how is 2020 treating you?
Very strangely, isn't it? It's definitely been a year to remember and a year to forget at the same time. But I try and look at the silver linings in all things, and got to spend a lot of time with my kids and my family. So it's been good to connect with them on a more frequently than I'd usually get to. So that's probably one of the only positives I can personally take from this year. But on that side, it's been good.
Yeah, I guess many people would say spending time with the family has been a bad thing, but I guess if you're a rugby player and you've got all your training and you have to concentrate on being in tip-top fitness, I guess having that time with your family is crucial.
Yeah, it is. It's when you're a rugby player, it's important to get your mind away from the game when you can, and freshen up mentally. And that 3-month lockdown period certainly gave us plenty of time to do that.
On the field for Castleford, it started well before lockdown. You had that great win against St Helens. Not quite the same after lockdown. Do you think it was the period of time away from the pitch, or just as it seemed to happen, everything just seemed to go wrong on and off the field after lockdown?
Yeah, I think it was just one thing after another. We went into lockdown so really confident that we could produce something this year, and coming out, we obviously had to keep training, and you've not got the same consistencies in your training when you're training on your own. You might not be warming up the same. You might not be doing the same prehab, or you might not pick up on little niggles you've got. And we picked up a few injuries during lockdown, and then unfortunately for us, that just seemed to continue to roll through the whole season. And you can't just blame injuries. We had games there where we were just poor, and it just wasn't good enough for us. And we've got a squad that we believe that we can be competing for a trophy, but we just weren't anywhere near coming out of lockdown. So big pre-season for us, and build into next season.
Yeah, no luck whatsoever with injuries, especially at halfback, and you had to fill in there a couple of times. Obviously, every prop forward enjoys getting hands on the ball and controlling things. How did you find that this season?
Yeah, man, I enjoy it. I enjoy it a bit more when I'm thrown in there in the middle of a game and there's no real pressure on me, and I can just play what I see and do what I have to do. When you get told early in the week you're going to be thrown into the halves, the mind ticks over and you think of all the possibilities. It's a little bit harder, but for me, I'm not expected to go out there and throw the big double cutout pass and find a winger and all that sort of fancy stuff. I just run the ball and play simple plays. I understand our structure really well, so it makes it a bit easy for me. But it's definitely something I do enjoy, just to do something different, as you said, and get the ball in your hands. And as I said, something different. It's enjoyable.
As you say, very, very talented squad at Cass, obviously hit by injuries this year. The thing you seem to be doing at the moment as well is re-signing a lot of those key players, not having too much of a turnover, and I guess that's important to keep that cohesiveness.
Yeah, definitely. We've had a new halves partnership this year, and we've not been on the pitch as much as we would like together, and that's given the time they've had together in training and in the games they've had, it's going to be a massive bonus. And we've got a pretty good spine, and with obviously Man of Steel, Paul McShane as well, and Evel's coming along as well. That'll take a little bit of time to gel, but everyone else around that to be able to keep that squad together it's really important to be able to progress your game. And we don't have to come in pre-season and start from square one. We can obviously touch on it, but we don't have to talk about all the detail in our attacking play and defensive structures that we usually have to. So it'll put us in a good start. You'd probably start us a few weeks ahead of where you usually would in a pre-season.
You mentioned Paul McShane there. What is it about Castleford that seems to produce these men of steel players every couple of seasons? That award seems to be going to a Cass player.
It's crazy, isn't it, for a club that people would say is a smaller club and not really one of the big names who we don't really sign marquee players or anything like that, but we tend to produce those players quite frequently, don't we? But I think it's just that we play an attractive brand of rugby, and even though at times we weren't at our best, but this season. But you look at people generally like to watch us play. But this year, Macca, even though we weren't playing that well, for him to get that award is outstanding. It just shows how much he controls our games, and even though we're losing games, he's picking up points every week, and he makes such a difference to our team, and you see that when he's not on the pitch for us.
Young Ollie Holmes has been busy in the last week doing his cycling. Did you ever fancy joining him on that escapade?
Definitely not. No, look, I wouldn't mind it. It's one of those things. He's got a bike. I'm not sure what it's worth, but it's like a spaceship, and if you've not got a decent piece of kit, it's pretty hard to keep up with him. I think Matty Crowther, our physio, did a couple of legs with him and he's on a bike that's 10, 15-year-old, and he said it makes such a difference. So, look, it's massive effort from Ollie, and obviously, and Kev Sinfield all putting money towards Rob Bowen, Matt and Euro, and it's obviously Kev's been able to do that, the running, and Oggie's done something different. Obviously, he's still playing, so he can't put his body through as much stresses as Kev can, but still a massive effort. I was talking to Ogg the other day, and he said I think he wanted to raise $2,000 or something like that, and I think he went over 15, and he was blown away by it himself, and really both those guys should be super proud of what they've done.
Yeah, it's great generosity from people as well, especially in these times where, as you say, 2020 has been a strange year for everyone. Obviously, you've had to play without the fans this year. How difficult was it to adjust to that?
Yeah, it was weird to start with. I think at training we do a lot of 13 on 13, which is obviously with no fans. So you're not obviously not going to hit the intensity that you do of a Super League game, but it's sort of, I think it gave us a little bit of a heads up of what it would feel like. But once you pass those first few games where you've not got the crowd back in you sort of get used to it. It's not the same. The crowds do have, it makes you realise how much of an influence they do have on games. But weird things like, I think our first game back, we were playing at Headingley, and I could hear the commentators talking when we were lining up for a restart. They were kicking off to us, I think, and you can hear the commentators talking, and you're like, you never really hear that, and it's just weird little things that you noticed. But I can tell you one thing, all the players are ready for fans to be back as soon as possible.
Yeah, fingers crossed with the vaccine and hopefully the way things are going. Obviously, we've seen fans in football and racing or whatever in the last few days. Hopefully, by the time we get to March, there'll be at least a few people in the crowd, and I think everyone's just desperate to see them back, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm no expert, obviously, but you can have people in a restaurant in certain tiers and whatever, and that's important. But if you can get into a stadium, you can and be socially distant, it's always been, hopefully for the players and the club's sakes, that we can start getting some fans back, and their sakes as well. There's going to be a lot of people out there who've been missing their rugby.
Obviously, it's been an annoyance more than anything to have these tests all the time. How have you found? I took a test last week. Thankfully, I was negative, but it's not the most pleasant of experiences, is it?
No, it's not ideal, is it? It's funny. You sort of get a crowd standing around to watch people get their tests, because some people are different. I'm fine with the one up the nose, but I can't stand the one at the back of the throat. It makes me gag, and some of the boys are opposite. And Jake Truman's one of the funniest. He just, tears come out of his face, and he gags and he sneezes and all sorts. All the boys will stand around and watch him just to come in and get his test done. But it's unfortunately it's the way of the world at the moment. It's necessary to keep the game going. We got to do it. And look, it's not the end of the world. It's uncomfortable for 30 seconds, but obviously still not very pleasant.
Obviously disappointing not to be involved in the finals this year, but what did you make of that grand final and especially the ending?
Oh my God, I've never seen anything like that. Like, as a player, in a grand final, you've played 80 minutes, someone has a pop at a field goal from 40 metres out, you're sort of standing there with your hands on your head hoping it goes over. And for him to just follow that ball just in case, and just the luck, and obviously there's an element of luck, but his effort to do that as well is outstanding. And the game in general was unreal, wasn't it? And it's not often that you hear from people in Australia and the NRL that will compliment a Super League match, but you saw plenty of that, and it was well deserved.
You signed a new deal at Castleford. Was that an easy decision to make? Yeah,
look, I was obviously, there's not as much money in the game as there is at the moment, and I was toying with the idea of having a look around, but I sat on it for a couple of days, and I thought there's no point. I wouldn't really want to go anywhere else. So we got the deal done, and I'm thankful for it. gives us one more season here, and then we'll see where we go from there. But it's done, and there's no really other place I'd want to be than Cass. So I'm thankful for that.
When you first signed a deal at Cass all those years ago, did you ever imagine staying this long?
God, no. We were coming over to experience something new. My wife and I, Amy, see the opposite side of the world, do a bit of traveling when we could, and we were going to do the 2 years and head home and start the next chapter of our lives. But 10 seasons later and 3 kids, would never envision that.
What was your first impressions of Castleford and British Rugby League in general?
Mate, Cass, I've lived in some areas back home that are kind of similar, but when I first arrived, it was just cold. I remember the plane landing and there was ice on the window, and I thought, what have I done? And Stu Donlan picked me up and took me into Cass, and I've told this story a couple of times, but the club was meant to organise me accommodation for a month. I was in the air, and they called Ryan McGoldrick and said, "Listen, we've not got anywhere for him to stay. Do you know anywhere?" So I ended up on the floor of one of Ryan's friend's house from the pub for a month during pre-season, and that obviously was a bit of an eye opener. And I was thankful I came over on my own at the start. My wife stayed at home for a little bit until I got us settled in and found us somewhere to live. But the club's come so far from where it was back then, and on and off the pitch. Guys come over. I remember when Jesse came over, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. They had a house ready waiting for him, had some food in the cupboard, so he was comfortable, ready for his kids. And I was pretty jealous, but I was also thankful that the club's progressed.
What is it about Castleford that keeps you there then? Is it the fans, the atmosphere, the team around you?
Yeah, I think everything. It's you walk around Cass and people say g'day, and the club itself, and I think as well, on the pitch from where we were when I started, we've progressed so far, and I want to see it out until we win something. It's a massive goal for myself, for the club as well, but for myself, it's I think it would just top it off if we could win something. And I'm not one to really give up on the goals that I set, so that's been a massive factor. But the people in the club and the people in the town are fantastic, and it's really become home for us.
We outside will always refer back to the grand final, but I guess as time goes on, that gets further and further away, and you just want to get back there and right those wrongs. Yeah,
definitely. Look, we've still got quite a few players here from that fantastic year of 2017, and we'd like to think we've learned a lot of lessons from that year and that game. And as you said, it's been quite a few years now, but we're still so hungry to get back there and really achieve that goal that we've set those years ago.
Well, where do you see yourself after rugby league? Are you going to stay within the sport or go to something completely different?
Mate, I'd like to. At the moment, I'll probably head home and find some work. I'd definitely like to stay in the game, whether that be coaching or playing some. I'd like to play some local league back there for a year or two, and then whether that goes into coaching either a senior side or even my son Zach. He's just had his first rugby session last week. He's turns 4 in February. Whether that's coaching some stuff with him and the juniors, I wouldn't mind, But I think it'd be silly for me not to try and stay in the game. I've learnt so much over the years, and be silly not to try and pass that on to some other people. And it's all I know. It's as what I've grown up with and what I've done as an adult. So whether it probably won't be in full-time capacity, but it's definitely something I want to stay involved with.
Obviously, then it's very early in your son's rugby league career. How are you finding it on the sidelines, watching him grow in the game? Obviously, at the age of 4, they just run around with a ball and try to chase it, don't they?
Yeah, that's it. He's still learning that he's got to put the ball down over the line. He's got a long way to go, but mate, it's fantastic. I still very vaguely remember my first year or two as a footy player, and it's just good fun. He had a great time running around in the mud, and as long as he's enjoying it, that's all that matters.
They love the mud. I don't think the parents love the mud afterwards, but they love the mud.
Yeah, no, that's right. He definitely loved the mud. I stripped him off out the front before I brought him in and put him straight up in the bath and the clothes straight in the washing machine. He was covered. So what little boy doesn't love running around diving in the mud with a footy? So he's it's definitely something that he's looking forward to every week.
As you say, it's all about enjoyment at that age. And I guess through your career, if you're not enjoying it, you wouldn't want to be out there, would you?
No, that's right. Look, there's definitely times where you're not enjoying it as much as you'd like to. But as a kid, that's all that matters, you know. As long as you're enjoying playing with your friends and getting out there. But as a professional, there's times where you're not playing well yourself, or your team's in a bit of a rut, and it's really hard to get out of. But it's a bit of a cliche. Rugby league's that roller coaster, isn't it? And you just got to ride those tough times and come through the other end.
You mentioned it was cold when you first came over. Obviously, we play in the summer over here. What age did you stop wanting to play in the mud?
When I got here, when it was freezing. But yeah, at home, it's a winter sport, but it's still warmer than here in summer. Sometimes it's very different conditions. But yeah, look, I've had some games in the mud that, you know, I remember we played Warrington. I think it was over Easter a couple of years ago, and it was
massive puddles.
Yeah, or more like lake, wasn't it? That even though I smashed my nose to bits that game, that was enjoyable because it was different. But I had one game. I can't remember what year it was, but it was very early on in the season. We played Leeds at home. Generally, in a game, you can warm up, and you get once you've been playing for 10 minutes, you don't really think about the cold too much. But everyone was going to scrums, shaking and shivering, and it was one of those nights you were wet and cold through to the bone. Not ideal rugby league conditions.
That's the big rivalry in it, Leeds, and the fans in Castleford, obviously, and I'm from Wakefield, so I feel the same. Love getting one over on Leeds. How quickly did you learn about that rivalry when you joined the club?
Very quickly. I made my debut against Leeds, so you know, it gets drummed into you pretty quick. Back then, obviously, we were a much weaker side than we are today, and they were very strong. But all the fans would say is, I don't care what you do all season, as long as you try hard and you beat Leeds and Wakefield. That's all that mattered to fans, and probably not so much anymore, but it's still pretty important to them.
Those fans will hopefully be back next year. As we close out this interview, Grant, thanks for your time as well. What would be the message to the fans for how you hope 2021 will go?
Well, first, the message would be thanks for sticking with us. You know, it's been a tough season for us and you guys as well. Like a lot of Cass fans, it's their life. The Castleford Tigers, and we've not performed as well as we could last season. So we'll be working hard to have a big season next year and just get down to as many games as you can if we're allowed. And it honestly makes such a difference. And we've got confidence in ourselves, and hopefully we'll show that confidence to you guys and give you guys confidence in us that we're gonna perform next year and hopefully bring home a trophy.
Well, Grant, thank you very much for your time. Best of luck for 2021. Hopefully you have a nice recovery in the off-season and enjoy pre-season, and we'll see you on the pitch next year.
Will do. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.